She leaned across the table, lowered her voice, and said she needed to explore her options before marrying me. 3 weeks before our wedding. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I smiled, paid for dinner, and quietly erased the future she thought was guaranteed. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever felt like you had to prove your worth to someone who claimed to love you, hit like, subscribe, and comment, because this isn't just a breakup story. It's a story about self-respect, power shifts, and what happens when someone assumes you'll stay no matter how little they value you. 3 weeks before my wedding, I believed my life was settled. Invitations were out. Deposits paid. Flights booked. The kind of calm that comes when you think the biggest decisions are already behind you. Lauren and I had been together for 3 years. She was thoughtful, analytical, always the kind of person who likes certainty. Or so I thought. That night, she suggested dinner at a quiet Italian restaurant downtown. White tablecloths. Soft jazz. The kind of place where couples celebrate milestones. I assumed we'd argue about centerpieces or seating charts. Normal wedding stress. I couldn't have been more wrong. Halfway through her pasta, she set her fork down. Not casually, deliberately. She said my name, Daniel, the way people say it when they're about to change everything. She wouldn't look at me, and in that moment, my body noticed before my mind did. My shoulders tensed. My breathing slowed. Something was coming. She said she'd been thinking about marriage, about forever, about whether choosing one person meant closing the door on too many unanswered questions. Her words were careful, rehearsed. She mentioned friends, Jessica, Megan, voices that had planted doubt. Are you really sure? Don't you wonder what else is out there? Marriage is forever. I listened quietly. Then she said it. She needed to explore her options before walking down the aisle. Not because she didn't love me. She said that quickly, too quickly, but because she wanted certainty. She wanted to know I was the best choice. The room didn't spin. My hands didn't shake. Something colder happened. I asked calmly, "So you're saying you want to see other men 3 weeks before our wedding?" She corrected me. "I don't want to see other men. I just want to explore." As if changing the word changed the meaning, I took a sip of water. Bought myself a few seconds. Then I said one word. Okay. That word hit harder than any argument ever could. She blinked, relieved, confused, already misreading me. I told her if she needed to test other options to be sure about marrying me, then we shouldn't get married. Not now. Not ever. Her tone changed instantly. She accused me of twisting her words, of being dramatic, of overreacting. She said doubts were normal. I agreed. Wanted to compare your partner to hypothetical alternatives days before your wedding wasn't. She reached for my hand. I didn't take it. People were watching now. I stood up, placed cash on the table, and said quietly, "You're free to explore whatever you want. Marriage is off." The look on her face wasn't anger. It was shock, like I'd broken a rule she didn't know existed. I drove home in silence. No music, no dice, just clarity. By the time I unlocked the door, 3 decisions had already been made. I didn't announce them. I didn't explain them. I simply began. While she was telling herself I'd cool down, apologize, and come back, I was already stepping away, not out of spite, but because something fundamental had shifted. And once that happens, you can't unsee it. The next morning, my phone was buzzing. Missed calls, texts, voicemails. I turned it face down. What surprised me wasn't sadness. It was calm, a deliberate calm, the kind that comes when your mind stops negotiating with itself. I called the wedding venue, canceled, accepted the financial loss without hesitation. Money felt insignificant compared to what I'd almost signed away. Then the photographer, the caterer, the florist. Each call erased another piece of the life we planned. By noon, it was gone. I called the jeweler. The ring had been insured. That felt prophetic that I finally read her messages. Confusion turned into frustration. Frustration into accusation. I didn't respond, not to punish her, but because explanations no longer mattered. I packed essentials. Each item placed in a box felt less like loss and more like editing, removing what no longer fit. Then I found the email. A job offer in Denver I'd turned down for her. If circumstances change, don't hesitate to reach out. I stared at that line, then replied, 40 minutes later, they want an interview. The possibility crept in alongside the calm. That evening, there was a knock. I didn't answer. Later, her mother messaged. I taped another box shut. The old version of me would have questioned everything. But the old version of me hadn't been asked to compete for his own future. She showed up unannounced days later. Eyes red, hair pulled back, holding the spare key. She froze when she saw the boxes. What are you doing? Packing. For what? I told her about the job, the city, the timeline. She said it was a misunderstanding. Fear, pressure, friends. I listened while folding shirts. She cried when she realized this wasn't a debate anymore. She asked if there was anything she could do. I told her no, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because the version of us she wanted no longer existed. Days later, she blocked my car, said she'd started therapy, that she'd changed, that she'd wanted me to fight for her. I told her I didn't want a relationship that required tests. She asked if I cared. I told her I cared enough to leave. She moved. I drove away. Something broke. Cleanly. Months later, she reached out again. Said she'd explored. Said every comparison highlighted what she lost. She said she was choosing me now. And in that moment, I felt something unmistakable. Distance. Not anger. Not temptation. Clarity. I told her the truth. When you have to compare someone to understand their value, you've already answered the question. She cried. Not to persuade, but because she finally understood the cost. I told her I was happy. Because I was. Then I blocked the number. Some chapters don't need footnotes. They need endings. What I learned wasn't complicated. When someone tells you they're not sure about you, believe them. Don't audition. Don't negotiate. Don't wait around hoping they'll decide you're enough. Certainty doesn't need competition. That if this story hit close to home, if you've ever walked away when it would have been easier to stay, hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments. Backhand index pointing right, was he right to leave? Or should he have stayed and fought? I'll see you in the next story.